Welcome to Upstart Footy Preview Round 21. We've had a lot of 80s music playing at La Trobe University in the last couple of weeks because we've been playing the final countdown by Europe because there's 4 weeks to go until the end of the home and away season in the AFL Finals. I'm Ben Waterworth, and look, the Japanese assassin isn't here today. He's got his priorities mixed around the wrong way, but joining us is a more than able replacement, Liam Quinn. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, good to see you, Ben. Big shoes to fill, filling in for the one and only Jay Tack, but I'll give it my best shot.
Large shoes and large pants as well. Big Friday night clash to kick off round 21. St Kilda taking on Collingwood at Etihad tonight. Saints have won their past 6 in really good form, and we haven't got a Western Bulldogs supporter today, but Liam's a mad Collingwood supporter, very up and about his own Pies. And I can't see the Pies winning, although the Saints' form has been quite ominous in the last couple of weeks, mate.
Yeah, it's amazing. St Kilda have been great. Obviously, they were pretty poor at the start of the year, and Collingwood were far too good for them on the medal in the year. But St Kilda should be much closer this week. Definitely give it a good contest. Be hopefully a bit similar to last year's first grand final, but hopefully, for my personal opinion, Collingwood just sneaking out with a victory.
Maybe not too close.
Not too close.
The blockbusters just keep on coming, with Hawthorn hosting Port Adelaide at the MCG on Saturday afternoon. Port Adelaide, it is official, they are an absolute basket case at the moment. Nothing is going right. The worst thing about their loss to Collingwood last week was that they sent off a club legend in Chad Corns in the worst possible style. And unfortunately, it'll get ugly on Saturday. Hawthorn very easily. Yeah,
it's a shame. Port Adelaide were one of the sort of traditional powerhouses when AFL got out of Victoria, and Chad Corns, one of their favourite sons, was great in their premiership and their dominant years, and it was a sad way to see him go out. And hopefully they can at least put up a bit of a fight against Hawthorn. But gee, you'd be thinking it'd be a bit of a big margin.
Hawks looking good, aren't they?
Very good. Very good.
One of the best games of the round will occur on Saturday afternoon, Quinny, when Fremantle host Carlton at Patterson Stadium. The Dockers would have been disappointed they fell away in that last quarter against the Saints last weekend, whereas the Blues had a bit of an easy run against the D's. This is going to be quite close, I get the feeling, but I think the Carlton small forwards might enjoy the open spaces of Patterson Stadium and might have a little bit too much legs.
Yeah, it was good to see Fremantle for a side that apparently don't really travel that well. Actually put up a pretty good fight last week, but gee, they'd be wishing they got a few of their injured players back a few weeks earlier. They're going to get the likes of Sandilands and Palmer back probably in a couple of weeks, but in a couple of weeks they could be out of the finals race. But should be a really close game, maybe Freo by a kick or two.
Ooh, get on the Dockers. Two exciting teams in the Western Bulldogs and Essendon go head-to-head on Saturday night at Etihad. Fast track, fast teams. It's going to be exciting. Essendon won by 1 point in one of the games of the year last weekend. A fantastic game to watch. And I think they know they're a genuine chance to make the finals now after last weekend. The Dogs, I think, are out of the race. Essendon will give this one a real crack and I think should run away with 4 points.
Yeah, you'd think if the Dogs get done, they're all but curtains for them. And Essendon are probably almost not really around about finals quality this year, but just the way it's turned out, they're probably going to get in, which would be a great achievement for them after they were pretty poor last year. And last week you just saw how important Joe Watson is when he comes back into that team. So it was fantastic to watch.
The Big Q Clash, version number 2 on Saturday night. Brisbane Lions against the Gold Coast at the Gabba. Gold Coast got the better of the Lions last time, Quinny. I'm not quite sure if that'll happen again. The Gold Coast are, I think, a little bit battered and bruised after last weekend's trip down to Skilled Stadium. And the Lions would have been disappointed they lost to the Crows last weekend. And I think they'll bounce back at their Gabba fortress. Not really a fortress, but I think they should be able to get the points over the Young Suns.
Yeah, and there'd still be some very proud players at Brisbane from their great years about a decade ago. And they would have been pretty hurt, I think it's safe to say, by that loss. And even though obviously Jonathan Brown's going to be out for the year, I think they should be too good, especially considering Ablett, they're saying might come back, might not, but he'd be a little bit underdone, you'd think, anyway.
West Coast Eagles travel to Etihad Stadium on Sunday afternoon to take on the D's. We were saying off air beforehand, but the D's are crying out for the end of the season. They are tired both physically and mentally. They need a break big time. The Eagles aren't, of course, as good a side away from Patterson Stadium, but this is a danger game for them as well. They should be too good. However, the D's are an emotional team. If they get up and about, it could become close, but you can't go against the Eagles here.
Yeah, you'd think that Melbourne have to just show some more fight, and they've shown the last couple of weeks. But West Coast have really been one of the surprise teams this year. They've been fantastic. Some of their older players like Cox and Embley and things were in great form at the start of the year, but they've had a good mix of kids as well. So they'll be not only an exciting prospect this year, but you'd think the next 5 years to come also.
Absolutely. Richmond taking on Sydney at the MCG on Sunday afternoon. Gee, how would you feel being in Adam Goodes' shoes last weekend? Played possibly one of the best games of his entire career and then loses the game off his own boot with a couple of poor shots, including one after the siren last weekend. He was best on ground, but he cost the game for the Swans in the end. They travelled to Melbourne for the second week in a row. The Tigers are another team crying out for the end of the season. I think the Swans, who are still in with a good shot, possibly to get a home final to finish in 6th position, should be too good against the Tigers.
Yeah, you'd sort of feel for Adam Goodes at the start of the week. He copped a fair bit of flack, and they wouldn't have been in that game without Goodes on Saturday. He was fantastic, and then, what was about half a metre? He missed that one by. It could have been a completely different story. But Richmond, again, as you said, still into Melbourne, just want to get the season over with, and I think Mumford for Sydney will just dominate in the ruck, and they will be far too good for the Tigers.
Another blockbuster to finish off round 21. This time it's Geelong travelling over to Adelaide to take on the Crows. Great win by the Crows last weekend. Mark Bickley's come in 2-0, so that's a great sign if he wants to coach for years beyond. But the Cats are in a little bit ominous form. They've played pretty ordinary opposition, to say the least, but they're looking good. They're going to finish in 2nd position, you would think, and should be too strong away from home. Yeah,
it was good with Adelaide to see John Cock get a bit of recognition last week. He's been a great servant for the club for almost a decade, and he doesn't really get any press in Melbourne, but, you can't tip against your Cats. They will be far too good in this one, and it could be a similar game to the Collingwood Port one last weekend.
It's a big call. We'll see. Another guy, actually, just on that matter, Scott Thompson, another 38 touches. He doesn't get the credit he deserves as well. He's a very good player. And, of course, North Melbourne with the bias. That means Liana, our camera girl, won't be watching any football over the weekend. Thanks for tuning in to Upstart Footy Preview, of course, on upstart.net.au. Thanks also to those guys watching us on bigfooty.com. We do appreciate you tuning in. Liam Quinn, tell you what, John Takamura is getting very nervy at the moment. Fantastic work by you. Thanks for coming in.
That's right, Ben.
And we'll see you next week on upstart.net.au. Of course, the magazine for emerging journalists.